Hello, hello, and welcome back to our podcast, Flower Farming in New Zealand, where we dig into the details of growing beautiful foliage and flowers here in Aotearoa. I'm your host, Jo Robinson. I've been a flower farmer for over 20 years, and I'm passionate about the flower industry and helping others learn. Do join us as we talk all things flowers to encourage the growing, buying, selling, and the use of local blooms. This week I have the absolute pleasure of talking flower farming with Kat of Electric Blooms. Welcome, Kat. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thanks, Joe. Lovely to be here. I'm very excited for this podcast. My name's Kat, and I'm probably coming into my third or fourth season growing in the Manawatu. We grow on about an acre outside of Fielding, and we grow a lot of different types of flowers, and we primarily sell from an on-farm shop. So that's, a little bit about me.
So what made you get started? What drew you towards flower farming?
Yeah, well, like a lot of people, I think I started out growing vegetables. I grew up gardening with my mum. My mum's a keen gardener, so I've always kind of been out in the garden. But when COVID happened, like a lot of people, had a big drive to get outdoors and to spend a bit more time in nature. And so I started to grow our own vegetables. And during that time, I started to plant some flowers just for pollinators and, just to support the environment and that kind of thing. And then,
It's your regenerative farming principles showing, isn't it? Just caring for
yeah,
the environment. Yeah, that's
yeah,
really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it is. And then where we started growing is where we live now, and we didn't have much of a garden before. And so when I started to grow these sorts of, pollinator friendly flowers, I started to see how much life that brought to the garden. And
Right.
yeah, and that kind of just took off from there. And then I got more into flowers, less into vegetables, and then kind of the rest is history, really.
So did the
So yeah.
flowers make you smile? Is that really, it's for so many people, it's such a mental health thing to be out with the flowers as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So I work a full-time corporate job off farm, and around COVID, it just took off. It got very, very busy. So I was taking call after call after call, meeting after meeting after meeting. And so, yeah, it really was that mental health aspect as well. So just being out in nature, we couldn't really go a lot of places. So we kind of had to make our own.
If you are managing a full-time corporate job as well as this, how big's your growing space and how have you set that up so that you can do both those things? Because that's two full-time jobs.
We're on about an acre growing space, so the whole property has sort of sheep and cattle and a few things, but the bit that we've sectioned off for flowers is an acre. I have some help, so my parents do help out from time to time with various things,
Thank you,
which
Mum
is
and Dad.
lovely.
Wow.
Thanks, Mum and
Yeah.
Dad. And then also my partner, Matt, who's also a builder, so that is very
That's
handy.
useful.
Yeah, so he helps out as well. But other than that, I'm a weekend warrior, so I just do what I can on the weekends. I think it's really helped me to figure out what's important and what's necessary and what's fluff that we don't need to do. Um, and I'm also really into perennials.
That helps. That
Yeah,
helps a lot. And you obviously you
yes.
analyze your return for each of those. If you're saying you've worked out what's fluff and what's not, if you're only doing what's essential, you become so much more adept at actually working out not just what tasks, but what flowers are worthwhile, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so we're still kind of new into this particular property, so 2 years on that property. So we're still building our perennials and our shrubs and that sort of thing. So we're not seeing a huge, I guess, return off of that, but I can see it just
But
being
that's
super
future proofing.
worthwhile.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
So, if you're not really cutting much off the shrubs and the perennials at this stage, what kind of flowers are you cutting from in the season, like in the upcoming season? I know it's the middle of winter now, but have you
Yeah,
planned for
yeah.
more annuals?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So we have mostly annuals that we cut from, and so we grow sort of from and bulbs as well. So yeah, first thing for us will be daffodils, then tulips, and then other spring bulbs, and then we'll come through with hardy annuals and summer annuals as well. So the idea with the farm is that we'll be pretty much operating probably 10 months of the year, or maybe 11 months of the
Wow.
year.
That's a long
That's the
time of
plan.
the year to have two full-time jobs. Well done, you.
Yeah,
Yeah, you need to be
yeah,
thinking about some self-care. We'll talk about that another
yeah,
time
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
massive.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, with your layout then to make that easier, have you built in raised beds so that you can just mow in between, or how are you managing the actual setup to make it easier for you
Yeah.
to be a weekend warrior?
Yes, so we've got a perennial section and an annual section. So we've been kind of
Oh,
growing in
yep,
the area of the perennials and phasing out the annuals from that and, building in perennials as we go.
yeah.
But we've got quite wide pathways in the perennial section, which are like old pasture basically that we mow. And we do have raised beds. They don't have like they're not wooden raised beds, they're in-ground raised beds, if that makes sense. So, and yeah, we just mow that. And then we've just put in our annuals area just this last, probably season, and that's a lot more compact. So we've got much narrower pathways that are wood chip rather than grass. So I'm hoping that'll make it a little bit easier to manage.
We've decided we absolutely love wood chip in the walkways.
Yeah,
It's just
great.
so good. And if you have got weeds there, they're so easy to pull. And what we
Mm.
find we do
Hmm.
is after they've been down for a couple of years, they've already broken down and they're full
Yeah.
of the best mycorrhizal fungi that you can then rake onto your
Yes.
beds in autumn, and you've got instant mulch, and then you're replacing your mulch rather than having to do so much, so many more steps. You've already done one step, you're ahead of
Yes.
the work, which is just fantastic. So now tell me, you're in the fielding area, but do you have to have irrigation in those beds as well?
Yeah, I think we will need to have irrigation. So we've had some interesting water challenges at this property. So
Don't
it's,
we all?
shall we
Yeah,
say? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, shall we say? So we do live in a high rainfall area, so we do get quite a bit of rain, but most of it is in the winter. Um, and so, yeah, and we've found that the type of soil that we have does dry out quite quickly as well. So there's a high sand content in the soil, and we do get quite hot over a couple of months in the summer, so we do need to have some sort of irrigation. Initially we were looking at putting in drip for the whole lot, because that's the most efficient water wise and that sort of thing. But because the water comes from a bore at this stage, it's got a high like heavy metal count in there. It was going to probably clog up the drippers unless we put in some really sophisticated filtration, which sounded very expensive when we looked into it. So at this stage, what we've got is something called wobblers. So they're like an overhead
the wee
irrigation.
spinny. Yep,
Yeah, the wee whirly bird
yeah.
looking things. Yeah, so they reach quite a good spread. So we've got them in at the moment, and we're also looking at ways to capture the rainwater off various other buildings and things like that. So I think
Yeah.
ultimately we'll eventually go to drip, but right now we've put in a few sprinklers.
So tell me a little bit about your growing methods. I know we've met online in various forums that talk about organic and no dig and regenerative farming, but what's your processes and your thoughts about the best way for you to grow flowers?
So I've kind of come on a little bit of a journey around how I grow things. So as I think a lot of us do. But I did start out, I won't say entirely conventional growing. When I got back into growing up during COVID, I did what a lot of people do, and you plant things, and then invariably you have an issue, and then you Google the issue. And then it says to spray with something or to use this very specific fertilizer or whatever it happens to be. And what I found doing that is I don't really feel like the sprays worked all that well. And then, as I said, we started to get a lot more life come into the garden. And I started to think about the impact of that. And it got me thinking that we've been growing food and crops for a long, long time before we started to use those sorts of things. And so, how did we get on before that?
Great thought processes. Really good thought
Yeah.
process.
Right, right. Like we've done this for thousands of years. So how did we get on before we started using, synthetic fertilizers and, sprays and things? So, and I think the more research I do, the more I find out how much we don't know and how much nature is really kind of in control. I guess my thing is that I try to grow as naturally as possible. And I'm not dogmatic about this or anything. Like, do what you got to do. But I choose to grow regeneratively.
So are you pretty much no dig as well?
We're minimum tillage is probably how I would put it. Basically, how we've set this place up is a little bit like hard work. We had kind of thought, well, it's quite sandy soil, like a silt loam, sandy silt loam. So it drains really well. And so it does drain really well, except in the winter when the water table gets really high. And then, yeah, and so then we end up with a bit of possible flooding. So we'd put in this driveway and ended up with all these piles of soil from putting in the driveway. And so I thought, you know what? Let's take that soil and raise all of our beds with it. Because they're quite close together, we had to do it very manually. So that's what we've done. But hopefully it's a one-time job.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that anymore. But yeah, so that's sort of, they're kind of permanent raised beds is what I would say.
Yeah. Even if they're semi-permanent.
Or semi-permanent, yeah.
I think it makes it easier on the body as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with having said that, is there a tool that you use that you wouldn't be without? For me, it's a nawashi. I love my nawashi.
Hori hori knife?
No, it's more of a curved blade.
No?
The hori hori's straight, and the nawashi's like a little hand hoe, and it's got a curved blade on it, which is ultra sharp. What about for you? Are you a hori hori knife person?
Yes, I think it's the best invention ever. I use it for planting, weeding, the whole 9 yards. And one of the worst weeds that we have is Californian thistle. So it's quite good because you can get right down and get rid of the root, basically.
Excellent. You call yourself a weekend warrior. Can you explain to me what's a typical harvest day look like for you? How do you fit that work in?
So I harvest typically on a Friday night for a Saturday morning shop, and then I also will do another harvest in the main growing season, or depending what we have flowering at the time, I will drive over to the farm after work and harvest at night.
Do you run a cooler?
Don't have a walk-in cooler, so I have some residential fridges that I use for things like tulips and other crops that particularly like being cold. And everything else, basically, I try and cut it and move it as soon as possible.
I've seen pictures of your beautiful shed, which I expect that the very clever Matt the builder built for you.
He did, yes.
Right. So is that where you moved most of your flowers through your own flower shed?
Yeah, so it's pretty new. The intention is that that's where we would sell most of them. I have done a few markets, and also I work in a office with about 300 people during the
That
week.
helps.
So yeah. So luckily, some of the team there do buy some flowers from me. So yeah, so that's kind of the current, I guess, main sales channels. I also do a bit of dried flowers that I sell online to florists.
You know how much you can sell through your shop outlet. So you're basically only picking as much as you know you can sell rather than picking everything. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. So I do pick everything. And the reason I pick everything is because I want more flowers the next week. So if we've got like a cut
Mm-hmm.
and come again crop, I don't want to let it go to seed, basically. Yeah. So I do pick everything, and getting that balance right of how much do I actually grow is always a learning curve, right? But in terms of the pricing, so yeah, it's I think it's trickier also when you're starting out, because I mean I've only been doing this for a few years, and we've been starting at this new property. And I think for me, there's two kind of principles that I work off for pricing. So one is, what is it costing me to produce this flower? And so what do I need to return to make up my costs, basically? And then the other part is around, customer value. So what value are my customers getting from this, and how much are they prepared to pay?
Psychologically, that's such an important way to look at it. How much are they prepared to pay? And then how can I make it look as though that is what that bouquet or bunch is worth? Because
Yeah.
then you're on a win. If you get that worked out, you'll move your flowers and they'll sell. And that's what you want. So in your wee flower shed, what do you call it? Your shop or your flower shed?
I call it Frankie the Flower Shop.
Okay, Frankie the flower shop. When you're dressing Frankie ready to be on show on a Saturday, are you doing bunches as well as bouquets, or what's your preferred method of selling?
Yes, I do both. So I have three kind of options that are available for like a grab and go style. And then this year we're looking at putting in a click and collect system as well. So people can pay through our website or bank transfer or cash or, however they prefer. We're looking to do like a pre-ordering system as well this year too. So we're just working through the logistics of that.
How do you connect with your local community? Do you have a newsletter, or do you use print advertising, radio advertising, social media? What's your favourite line of attack?
Yeah, I do most of those, except I haven't been on radio yet, but maybe that's something I could try. So I think I'm on all the social medias these days. So I've just joined TikTok.
Okay, I'm
Thought
too
I'd never
old for
say
that.
that, but I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have been doing a bit of print advertising as well, and I have started to do an email newsletter.
That's cool. So you're in year 3 of flowering. What do you think is the biggest learning curve in running a flower farm?
For me, the biggest thing is like the physical limitation of what can actually get done. Yeah. And just knowing that we do only have 7 days in the week and you can only do so much. So, what is the most important thing to do? So, really honing in on that prioritization. Like a lot of people, I'm not a perfectionist, but I do have some high standards of what I expect to see in the farm. So, yeah, I've had to let go of some of that. Like, yeah, that bed's full of weeds. That's okay. That's an accidental cover
Yeah,
crop, is what I'm calling that. Yeah,
it's mulch. It's
opportunistic cover
living
crops.
mulch,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
a green cover crop.
yeah, exactly. So that's probably one of the big ones. And then also just all of the just the business side of things as well, like all the accounting and the setting up a website and just all of that stuff. It's been a learning curve for me as well.
And I suppose it's about learning how to sell to platforms like Form Oil, wholesalers, or market, or wherever you're going with your selling. It's learning their systems as well. I think that's quite a scary thing for growers to put themselves out there when they don't understand how that business runs, which hopefully we'll cover off in other episodes of the podcast. What's your favourite flower to grow? And is it your favourite
Yeah.
because of how easy it is to grow, to pick, or to sell?
Oh, good question. Well, okay, I have probably a few. One of my favorite flowers, because it's easy and sells, is status. Like,
Really?
I've come around to it in this last season because it's in really high demand with a lot
It's a
of
pretty good
florists,
reason to
and
grow it. Yeah.
it just grows. Don't have to do much to it. So that from that perspective is probably one of my favorites. But in terms of just looks and things, I like ranunculus and tulips. I like tulips, roses, and then I like lilies as well. Rose lilies, quite into them. Yeah. So that's more of the looks part and just what I like.
So you've gone to all this effort of growing these flowers. Which is the worst one for you to harvest?
Oh, I've done away with any of those actually. So that's
Good
part
on
of
you.
my
See, analytical.
yeah.
Analytical. It works.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't have time for the faffing about. So there's a lot of things I don't grow anymore as a result of that.
Give me an example of a couple that you've cut out of your sequence.
I've actually just reintroduced this, so I might eat my words, but scabiosa is a good one. Chopped that out, but now started to grow a little bit more again. So anyway, and we'll see how
The
that goes.
perennial or the annual?
No, the annual, I've put the annual back in for this year, just a small patch to see how we go. But yeah, anything that's fiddly like that you have to kind of look for an in to cut, anything like that is gone, basically.
It shows how different, because it's such an easy one for me and it grows so tall and it's so easy to pick and quick. I've cut out the annual phlox. I will not grow annual phlox
Oh,
for
same.
anybody.
Yeah,
It is a
yeah, same.
pain in
That
the neck. Yeah, it's too fiddly. Your favourite moment in the growing season? What's your absolute favourite time of the season? Not of the
yeah.
day, of the season.
It's actually magnolia season. For me, it's the signal that the season is starting. So it's almost pre first pick.
There's obviously an awful lot going on in your life. What keeps you going when you realise you've got a lot of work to do on your flower farm? What gets you through those tough days when you're already knackered when you get home? You need to eat, have a break, get on with life, but you know you've got hours of work on the flower farm.
Yeah, well, I do love what I do, so that helps. But also, so my day job is very much indoors at a computer most of the day. And so it's a really nice compliment to be able to do flower farming alongside that, because not only like is it outdoors, which is always nice to get out, get outside, but it's physical. So my day job is very like more mental. So it's actually a nice compliment. So even though, yeah, I might work 7 days a week, it's actually a nice blend. So it's one of the things that I think helps. So it's not like doing flower farming 7 days a week. So it's a nice sort of break.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you don't want to work 7 days a week forever. How do you see the flower farm evolving over the next few years?
We've been working through all the setup stuff for the farm over the last couple of years. So I think I'll be able to get a lot more efficient as we are more established.
Yes.
And then in terms of where we go next, I'll either start employing people. Obviously, I need the business side to make sense to do that, but I'll start employing some like part-timers perhaps, just to help with some of the bigger jobs or lower value jobs or whatever. Yes.
Or even if it's just some of the hand watering, if you've got seedlings or things that need hand watering, if somebody else can manage that, that's a huge weight off your shoulders to be able to do that. So anything particularly new or experimental that you're excited about for this next season?
Yeah, good question.
Do you know why I'm asking that? I saw one of your images on your website and you've been mulching your beds with the sheep wool, which came from your own farm. And I
Yeah,
was talking
yeah.
to a dahlia grower actually, and she was saying that she's been using it on her dahlia beds for years. Have you noticed that that is working, or have you not really treated it
Yeah.
as an experiment and kept records? You're just watching to see what happens?
I probably haven't kept a lot of records, but I feel like I have a pretty good assessment of how wool works, because I think it's a brilliant resource. And my parents were sheep and beef farmers, and my dad's
Now they're
parents
flower
also.
farmers.
Now they're flower farmers reluctantly. So it's a real shame that the kind of bottom fell out of the wool market, really. So it's,
Yes.
that's one aspect to it. But we were looking at like, how much would we get from selling the wool versus how much would I have to pay if I had to bring in some other sort of mulch. And so
Yes.
it's actually more worthwhile, holistically for me to use the wool. And it's fantastic for a lot of different things. Water retention, so like protecting the soil, it's very, very good. It's also a built-in fertilizer as well, so there's that. And I've noticed, yeah, the soil really does respond to using wool. So, like if you pull, like I use, maybe luxuriously, I've been using like full fleeces on the beds, so we have access to it. So yeah, so like when we lift up, you lift up the layer of wool, and it just the moisture level is so nice. There's so much life in the soil. It's just really, really lovely. Doesn't dry out. Yeah, it's brilliant.
So you'll
Yeah.
carry on doing that, or will you experiment with alternatives?
So I actually use probably 3 or 4 different types of mulches. So I use compost, wool, and wood chip, and I use
Right.
them all for different applications. So
Yes.
like the wood chip I use for like shrubs, probably more than
Hmm.
anything. Seems to pair nicely with shrubs. I don't know, maybe probably something to do with the fungal networks and that kind of thing. And then the wool, I prefer to use that for herbaceous perennials, or dahlias is probably the other thing. So the good parts is really, really deals with the annual weeds, which is fantastic. What it's not so good at doing is preventing perennial weeds from regrowing. So things like those Californian thistles. So if you don't get every bit of root out of the ground, they will come through the wall again, and any other perennial weed. But also planting into them is a lot more labour
Yeah.
intensive.
Be a bit
Yeah.
like using the linseed straw, which you have to pull apart quite
Yeah.
physically
You
to
have
be
to.
able to get through
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yes. So you have to pull it. So with
Yeah.
me using full fleeces, I'm sure if you used, odds and ends, it would be slightly different. But yeah, you have to sort of every plant that you're planting, you have to make a space for, and it slows you down. So I've come with this sort of happy medium of herbaceous perennials, dahlias, some of the veggies, that kind of thing is what we'll use it for.
So I assume that you can't really use the wool certainly not a full fleece load of wool on annuals because they're too small to be able to withstand the fleece. Just like the fleece is killing annual weeds, it would perhaps damage annual flowers as well if you used it too thickly.
I haven't found that to be the case actually. Yeah, so you just make a little hole in the fleece. So there's a little bit of a hole around a bit like if you're
Yeah,
burning holes in a weed mat or something like
yeah.
that. There's a little hole, and so they do quite well. The other thing that's challenging is watering through thick wool. So
The
you would
lanolin will
need
just make it run off.
yeah, or it absorbs a lot of it, which is totally fine during the winter because it kind of protects
Yes.
the plants from drowning. In summer, it kind of sucks up all the moisture or prevents it from kind of going through. So you could lay some drip line underneath the wool
Mm,
and then put the wool on top.
sounds awesome. You have got this sort of
Yeah,
all
I know.
sorted out. It's in your brain,
Well,
it's
I
all
don't know if
ticking
I have.
over. Oh, I think you
I
have.
don't
I
know if I
think you
have,
have.
but I've tried a few things and observed a few things. So yeah.
So you've been doing this and you've been observing and you're having to look and work out what works for you. But what would be some advice that you would give someone who's just starting out in growing flowers commercially?
Good question. I think probably figure out where you're going to sell them first.
This is me clapping.
This,
That's so, so true.
yeah,
Don't grow it if you don't
yeah,
know where you're going to sell it. Yeah,
exactly. And that's really hard when you're starting out too.
yeah.
Like, 'cause you
You
just
just want all
sometimes
the
you don't
pretties.
know. Yes,
Yeah.
you're on all the pretties, and you don't know what will sell and who wants it, and so there's an element of testing things out. But I guess I would say is don't go all out and grow absolutely everything. Firstly, if you don't know where you're going to sell it, and secondly, if you don't know you can grow it either, figure that out. Give some thought to that first, is what I would say. Be the main thing. Yeah.
So tell me what you think a myth or a misunderstanding that people often have about flower farming.
Oh yeah, so that we're all out in our sundresses, skipping around the
In
fields.
my mind, I had exactly that same thought. Someone out in their sundress with pretty nails, clean hands, clean feet.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was quite funny. So at my other job we were having a coffee with someone that was new to the organization, and there was a question asked about what your dream job would be, and so flower farming came up. I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be so lovely. And it is lovely, right? We're very privileged to do this, but it's not a walk in the park.
What we grow is lovely,
Yeah.
and it's a big difference between how we look and how our flowers look. Because believe me,
Yes.
I don't look lovely when I'm flower farming. You'd never see me out on the farm in a dress. I'm covered head to toe to stop me getting sunburnt. I've got a hat on. I've got a
Yeah.
hat here if I haven't
Yeah.
got a hat on.
Yeah.
I've got gloves on.
Yeah.
Everything's filthy dirty. It is. It's that myth that it's easy,
Yes.
that it's
Yes,
elegant, and
exactly.
that it's clean. But that's what
Mm-hmm.
that image portrays, isn't it? The sundress, and it's always got
Yeah.
white in it. Really?
Yeah.
Me
Yeah.
and white, we don't go.
I know. And I felt this became even more apparent to me when I started doing a couple of little like YouTube videos. But because I'm out working at the same time, I'm like, how can I look nice for these videos and also get my job done? And I've come to the realization, I was like, this is reality. People could not watch them if they.
So take a moment to tell us your YouTube channel so we can watch you on YouTube.
It's Electric Blooms on YouTube, and it's very rudimentary, is the word I'd use to describe it currently.
We will support your rudimentary style on YouTube because we're rudimentary on a
Yeah,
podcast. So there we go. We're both
thank
quite
you.
happy.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in practice helps everything. So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to get stuck in and give it a go, and I'm sure that I'll learn a few things and improve along the way. So that's my approach to things.
And that leads perfectly to my final question, which is what does success look like for you in flower farming?
Oh, that's such a good question, Joe. There's probably a few prongs to that, I would say, for me, is that whole, as you know, we both have interest in regenerative farming, and I do take being I guess, a steward of the land quite seriously. And so knowing that I'm kind of doing my bit there is success for me. And so, it has to be obviously a viable business, but a big big factor for me is improving the community as well. So I come from a farming background, so sheep and beef farming, and I feel like as life goes on, we seem to be getting a bigger divide between people who live in residential areas and then people who live in rural areas. And I'd just love to be able to show people in town what it actually looks like to be on the land and what it looks like to be a regenerative farmer. So that to me is success.
Yeah, and that whole regenerative process of thinking about the land and the future and your own health and how to tie those together is so important. Do you think you'll have like tours of the farm or run workshops on the farm for regenerative growing? Do you think that's how you'll get to your community in that way?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the more sort of medium-term plans is I want to do a YouTube pick and workshops. And also that's part of the YouTube channel thing as well. I actually want to be able to reach more people and show a little bit more ad hoc, I guess, this real life and kind of ad hoc as to like what I'm actually doing when I'm out on the farms.
You do realise that you're going to have to talk to Matt the builder and tell him that Frankie needs a big brother, because you're not going to fit a workshop in that little flower shed.
No, that is in the works, but not quite yet.
He's a busy man too.
Yes,
Kat, I can't
exactly.
thank you enough for coming along and talking today. I love your drive and your energy, and I hope that Electric Blooms is going to be very successful both on YouTube and in the flower farms.
Yeah, thank you, Jo. This has been a great first podcast experience. Thank you. Really looking forward to the rest of the podcast too.
Thanks again, Kat, for taking time out of your exceptionally busy life to talk to us. We really do appreciate it. And just a reminder, you can find Kat on her Electric Blooms YouTube channel under the same Electric Blooms handle on social media, including the dreaded TikTok. The links are in our show notes and in our social media posts for the podcast. Until next time, petals, smile, be happy, and if you like the way we're connecting all aspects of the flower farming community, please buy us a coffee using the link in the show notes. Buying us a coffee is a great way of saying thanks. Think of it as watering your favourite plants. We just talk more and we photosynthesize less. Let's bloom together with flower farming in New Zealand.